Hey, have you been thinking about implementing a video content marketing strategy for your startup or small business, but don't know where to begin? Would you like to reach more customers using video? Or perhaps you'd like to increase your subscribers and views on YouTube and create deeper brand awareness? Well, our guests can help you do all that and more. Hello and welcome, everyone, to the Startup Live Show. I'm your host, Ande, Lyons, startup founder, coach, podcast and live stream host, and co-host of a popular startup pitch event right here in beautiful Boston called Founders Live Boston. And we are streaming live right now on LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch, thanks to the oh so delicious StreamYard platform. How's everyone doing tonight? Hanging in there? Gosh, I hope everyone's family, your loved ones are hanging in there strong and healthy, and you're staying home and doing what you need to during this pandemic. And I am so grateful that you carved out time to tune in and up your founder game. Those of you tuning in live, please introduce yourselves in the comment thread. Let folks know where you're hailing from and share your business name and website with each other, because you need to use this opportunity to expand your network. Connect with each other on LinkedIn and follow each other on social media. You never know where your next collaboration is going to come from. Your questions and comments are important, so please pop them into the comment threads during our conversation, and we'll do our best to answer them live. And hey, if you know someone who would benefit from our conversation tonight, please share this live stream link on your social media feed so other folks can join in on the fun. The theme of the Startup Live Show is a problem shared is a problem halved. And our phenomenal guest, Roberto Blake, will show us how to take our video marketing game to a whole new level. Everybody ready to join me in oh, okay, sorry, just got a message, but we're live. Good. Join me in bringing on live streaming the amazing Roberto Blake. Give me a yay. Hey, everyone.
Thanks so much for having me, Ande.
I'm so thrilled to have you here, folks. I found Roberto at my favorite bar, frankly, Twitter. Yep, that's right. It's where I like to hang out, have a few drinks, and chat with folks. And he was laying down video tips that blew my mind. I followed him immediately on YouTube, and seriously, he upped my game significantly. In fact, I happily joined his Patreon, subscribed to his Patreon to show my love and appreciation for the amazing, amazing work that you do, Roberto. Before we get going, let me just say hi to a few favorite folks. And here's Vicky. Hey, Vicky, founder of Ken K Marketing, joining from Cincinnati on YouTube. We love that you tuned in. And then we have Marielle O'Rourke, the makeup artist to the stars here in Boston. We love you and your incredible work. And brides who hire Marielle and Marielle Artistry, you can trust that you are going to have an amazing outcome. Just saying. So anyway, Roberto, one of the things that I love about you is your ability to translate really complicated ideas, terms, etc., in this video marketing world and bring it in to reality. But before we go into implementing marketing strategies for video content, let's talk a little bit about your startup story. I mean, you had you were on payroll somewhere, right? In advertising, and then you
I worked in a couple of companies.
Yeah, so you came up with this audacious idea. What compelled you to launch your business?
I was depressed. Seriously, for me, it was that I found myself constantly depressed at work. I found myself not feeling that. And by the way, it's not that I'm not somebody who craps all over 9-to-5 jobs, but I do feel that you have to be in a place and you have to work at a company and a culture where you feel respected, where you feel that you have opportunities to move up, where you feel like your ideas and your work is embraced, appreciated, valued, and not just monetarily, but where again you feel like you're treated well, like you're respected, and that you're not having other people who don't really have a grasp of what the job is. try to interject or dictate into the process of your work because you know how best to do that. They just have to tell you the results that have to be produced. Like, but they don't need to interfere with the methods by which you do that if you've proven that you know what you're doing. So that can be super frustrating for people. So a lack of agency, a lack of control, and then frankly, I was at a place in my life where because control and agency and freedom means so much to me as a creative person that I just wasn't satisfied with anything about where my life was going. And I realized that majority of that was tied to how much of my life was leveraged in my job and my career. And I didn't hate the work I was doing. I hated the experience of doing it. And a lot of that had to do with the way that people in that process were involved. And it's just how it is
Yeah,
sometimes.
oh yeah, and I know that corporate struggles with this all the time, trying to find ways to not slam people down and micromanage them. But what gave you the courage? Because I mean, I know that can be a real impetus, a very strong incentive to say, "Hey, I'm done. I'm not dealing with this anymore. Life is too short to love my work, but hate the experience at where I am." I love that quote, Roberto.
Yeah. It was the depression. It was the fact that I was constantly feeling depressed, anxious, angry, sad. I literally couldn't take it anymore. And there were just a series of things that I found myself agreeing with less and less, or holding my tongue, or compromising, or being frustrated. And eventually I stopped holding my tongue. And we got to a place to where it was fire me or I quit, and that's just the way it is. And I wouldn't call it courage. I would call it ultimately just coming to a place where you can't respect yourself if you don't do this.
Right. And how many folks can wave their hands and say yes? I mean, I've been unemployable since 1992, Roberto.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I tried a few times. I fell off the wagon. And one time I had to fire myself, and another place they fired me. But so how did you end up in this category? Because video marketing, and what year was this? Because let's put it into context as far as
I'm
where
not
were we
even.
at?
I'm not even sure I remember the exact year. I want to say maybe it was like 8+ years ago.
Mhm.
Um, like roughly 8 or so years ago, because in preparing, the good news is that I was already freelancing in something non-related to my work, because I was already working as a marketing manager at a company. So I had a traditional marketing background. And I had worked at a different point in my career for the company previously. I had worked for an ad agency before that, and then I'd worked for the company before, but in a different job capacity. Before I was a senior designer at the company, and then I went and I worked for an ad agency in New York, and
Mhm.
then I went back to North Carolina and I was working for the company, but this time as the head of the marketing department, working directly under the CMO. And I went through two CMOs in 3 years, and neither of them had a marketing background. None of them had a marketing education. None of them had worked in marketing. One of them had to have me explain to them what a web browser was,
Aw.
um, at a web hosting company. Um, Yay! Meritocracy. Yay! Hierarchies of competence. Yeah, these things that don't exist.
Yeah.
Or to be fair, they don't exist everywhere. But
You had to cut
this
the
is
cord. It was
this is
time.
corporate culture. This is sometimes what you can expect.
Mhm.
This is sometimes the reality of working at the one of the bigger companies in your small town. And the reality is, I knew I could do better. And I knew that I could do everything on my own, because there's a certain point where you start to realize, because I was a freelancer, because I'd had that experience, because I'd been even freelancing even when I was in college and things of that nature, I just had not been able to successfully do it full time and make it stick for a prolonged period of time. But this time I was like, all right, this time for sure. Because at this point, I was older, I was in my mid 20s, I was a little bit more seasoned, I was a little bit more mature and savvy, and I'd been absorbing the lessons of self made millionaires that I'd worked for long enough to really feel like I understood enough about business. I'd been training up, studying up, and I also felt like the reality is, I'm like, I can just cut the middleman, because the reality is that if you work for someone else, they're selling your value at least 10 times what they're paying you. So why not just go direct to the market? And even if you can't sell it for as much as them because you don't have the connections, you don't have the big name, you don't have all the resources, you're still going to be better off than working through the appliance of the job or the middleman if you have the discipline and the confidence and if you've educated yourself. And the other thing, Andy, about it was about control. It was about controlling the process of my work, controlling who is in my environment and who I'm answerable to and what those experiences and interactions are. It was about controlling my time because beyond like, oh, I have to wake up and go to work. The reality is I found myself at work being held hostage sometimes because we'd have an all hands on deck for something that has nothing to do with me. Or when I work really hard, sometimes they tried to even reward me and let me go when my work was done. But other people who weren't in my department, who weren't doing my work, they were like, well, you're an employee just like us. Even if you're a manager, you're an employee just like us. You should have to stay to the end of shift. And they started whining about me getting special treatment. And it's like, well, yeah, because I like, well, what makes you special? Well, the fact that I do a task none of you can do, that I'm qualified and educated to do something none of you are, and the fact that I got all of my required work done sooner than all of you. Why am I being held hostage to pitch in
Right.
on work that you guys didn't finish because you're lollygagging when I got my work done. So there was no incentive, Andy, to keep working hard for no monetary rewards
Right.
and to be gifted with, oh, you're efficient, you're effective. Here's other people's workload who aren't as good as you at anything that they're supposed to be doing. And so here, you can pick up their slack because you're so industrious.
Okay,
Like, that's not
entrepreneurs,
fun.
you remembering that feeling?
Yeah. So that's not fun.
No.
So there's a point where you just say, I cannot honestly look myself in the mirror and say that I'm respecting myself if I keep showing up for this abuse.
And the pain of the current circumstances is much greater than the pain of launching a business. So you chose a category, a niche, creatives,
Well, I
right?
started as a freelancer.
Mhm.
Just remember, I went back to client services. I went back to my roots in creative work in photography, graphic design, web design, video editing, copywriting, all of the creative skills. Because the reason, and people are like, well, that sounds like a jack of all trades. It's like what you learn outside of college and traditional education is that necessity is the mother of invention. When you go to work in the real world, you will not get to be a specialist in most cases unless you were hired at a very, prestigious company that values specialization, then you will get to be a specialist. But if you go and if you work at a company that's small to medium size, you will find yourself working within the culture of that company, which typically will mean wearing 3 to 5 different hats in exchange for one paycheck. Excuse me there. A little burp. Yeah, you will like, and I'm sure that there are people in your audience who can relate to that, Andy.
Oh, are you kidding? We're seeing the comments right here. And of course, um, yes, Eric, I was thinking of you. And I was also thinking of Vicky.
Yeah,
Because Vicky had an incredible side hustle for years,
yeah.
and she's a marketing goddess, and for small businesses, she's amazing. And I know I've heard your story, Vicky. So I know you're feeling Roberto's pain, etc. So how did how'd the launch go, and when did you start getting? Because one of the beauties of your startup story is Roberto is that you built up your reputation and you organically chose to just build your YouTube presence. And then from
Mm-hmm.
there, that led to you getting speaking engagements,
Oh
which
yeah.
led to, I mean, because, a solopreneur, freelancer, whatever you want to call
I
folks like
evolved into
me.
a solopreneur from being a freelancer. There's a transition there that I'll get to, but yeah, no, it's
Yeah.
hard.
Talk about that.
So with freelancing, it's something that I'd already been moonlighting and doing for a long time
Mhm.
anyway. It was a matter of believing and having a strategy for making it more viable, diversifying in more areas. And because I'd proven myself and proven to myself that I was good enough at these different diverse skill sets to help make the company money doing them, because that was required. You'll find yourself very fast when you're working in corporate life, 9 to 5 life, and they say you have to figure this thing out. You have to Google it or you have to do it. Or, all right, great. You figure that thing out. Now it's part of your daily task. you will get the experience to become competent in something. And I don't think you will be a Jack or Jill of all trades. I think that that is rhetoric that specialists use to justify charging more, to be very frank with you. And I think it's also something that educators use. And I say that as an online educator, it's a little different. But I think that specialization, I don't think there's anything wrong with specialization, but I do think it's marketed as something that you absolutely have to aspire to, or you're not good at anything. Competency is by many degrees in measure, and you, any of you who have clients yourself know this, it basically comes down to you're only really required to be better than the person who's paying you. And sometimes you don't have to be better than the person who's paying you. You have to be able to just take it off of their plate and be good enough. And like, the reality is that is more than sufficient. Will it make you a master? Will you make you the highest paid person in the world? No, but the fractional difference in the money that someone makes between being 80% competent at something versus 90% competent at something is negligible at best, and the gap can be closed very easily with positioning, marketing, branding, or just being better at building relationships.
I
So
want I want to pop in here, Roberta, because I want to remind our female viewers, this is the biggest challenge women tend to have because they want to be, I've got to be better. And Roberta, your advice is so important. It's not to say that guys don't have the same problem, but women tend to,
women and minorities tend to.
and minorities
Yeah.
exactly, tend to think they've got to be better and all of that. And I just love, love, love that advice for folks. So you figured that out, which is wonderful. And then how did you find clients? How did you get on board? And how did people start picking you up to speak?
Organic SEO. So whether it was my freelancing clients, which was happening before YouTube started getting traction, I had my
Mhm.
blog and my website back then. It's before I moved from, I had a WordPress website. So I used the SEO and I had a blog, and I was actually sharing my own experiences as a creative professional, as a freelancer, as even a tech, someone who could just help you figure out cameras and computer parts. Even I would just make parts lists and buyer's guides, and I did this for a while. I also did some interviews, and I managed to get some digital artists and people who then later would blow up. I got Kyle Lambert, and you guys may or may not be familiar with him, but what you will be probably familiar with is he was the person who, a few way back when the first iPad launched, did a iPad fingerprinting that was photorealistic of Will Smith, that went viral back then. He was also the person who used the iPad, and he did those Toy Story posters on the iPad. So you may have seen stories or things about that in the internet back then. And I was one of the first person to interview Kyle Lambert back then. I also, you know, interviewed a lot of international artists in the Photoshop community, people like Fenardi Iqbal and these other people, Kurase Irwal, and like just all of these different artists and people from the creative world. I started submitting a lot of my own stuff to magazines, and I actually got published in Advanced Photoshop, Photoshop Creative, magazines that I've been reading for years and years. I finally got to see my artwork inside of them. It was this wonderful
Nice.
thing and experience for me, Andy. Um,
Nice.
and my organic traffic back at the peak of my blog when it was a WordPress blog, and then it's become a WordPress blog again since. Back then, I think I was getting 20,000, 30,000 hits a month, which in the world of having a blog
Hello.
is a lot. It's a
That's a
lot.
lot, is
But I
right.
also had a lot of content because I was publishing maybe 2 to 3 times a week or more.
And you were
For
building an email list too?
At the time, I wasn't. I
Okay.
and the thing is, I regret that, but I had such a sour experience with email marketing in corporate America as an email marketer that even when I built my own business, I was just so reluctant and again, this is a mistake to not take with you. There's a point of do not take the trauma from your corporate life into your business. Drop that baggage at the door. It's very hard. I didn't do it properly. I'm giving you that advice now of not repeating my mistakes. This is not hypocritical of me. It's my biggest regret. And one of those was my resistance to email marketing stemmed from how much I hated our approach to it in corporate because I wanted our emails to be value. I wanted to be this and that. But this is one of those things where my advice wasn't heeded and where I kept trying to drag people into the 21st century, kicking and screaming to be resisted all the way. I kept trying to drag us into value driven and putting the consumer first and all of these things. No, we got to do it this way. We got to da, 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 da. It's like
So how long did it,
we've
how
been
long
in
did it,
business for 20 years. We know what we're doing.
and we can relate, right? Viewers, but how long did it take you to say, "Ruh-roh, I need to create an email marketing strategy"?
4 or 5 years.
Okay, well,
Because I was getting all the organic, I was getting all the things, and I know better deep down. And I especially again, I tell people now, like, but I like I really was resistant to it, not because I didn't believe it worked, is because I just was distancing myself as much from my corporate experience as possible. And there were lessons I did learn at corporate America, and I don't take those things for granted. And I'm very fortunate. And I feel very blessed to have absorbed as much as I did, because there's plenty of people who work at companies and never take anything away in terms of entrepreneurship. They never learn the lessons and the business. And I owe a lot of my technical background, I owe a lot of my skill set to my experience in corporate America. I don't It's hard to say that I wouldn't change anything, because it was also very traumatic and I suffered a lot of abuse. I even had issues where I had to suck it up and bite my tongue dealing with casual racism sometimes, Andy. And it was just like,
so hard.
it's so like, I, I won't, it's hard to say, oh, I wouldn't change a thing, because I am happy with where I am today. And I do believe all of my cumulative experiences got me here. But that was a lot to go through. And if there was another way to get here, or somewhere that I'm very happy with, but I don't know that there is. So there's no point in having those kind of regrets.
Hey, listen, as a woman in business, and let me tell you, I think it's really primarily the reason why I'm unemployable for those reasons. So, but you figured it out. And of course, I like to talk about this, Roberto, because folks tuning in either now or later, we are founders and we have to find our ways to profitability and sustainability. And it can be a squirrely path.
Yeah.
We can take this, we pull on this thread, we pull on that thread. It takes time to find out where are we going to land, who are we going to serve first. I mean, I know there are different theories about niche marketing, but boy, if you can have a nice, strong, launchable market, it really helps you build your foundation, and then you can
I
start.
believe in niching, but I also believe that the path to it lies in self-awareness. And I think people's reluctance and resistance into it is that they can't quantify, and they can't say what they like that they're actually good at, that makes money,
Yeah.
that has a place in the world. And if you can't answer that, then there's not really a lot of point to niching down. And so I understand that. I understand that self exploration, because you have to figure out what you like. And the younger you are, the less likely, in my opinion, you are to know and be confident about what you like and what you're good at. Because, wow,
Someone must be having a virtual birthday celebration.
I think it's more that maybe someone's alarm went off, or somebody dropped something on a car. It's like, I don't know. This is usually such a nice, quiet neighborhood. But
We're live
the
streaming. That happens.
we're
But
live
you're
streaming. That happens.
talking
And I
about the
hope everyone's
receipt.
okay. Actually, I hope there's not something else going on out there.
Yeah. But finding the way to monetize a business is always hard, especially for a solopreneur where it's services and fees. Did you struggle with
Yes.
that? Figuring out what to charge?
The good news is, the thing is, I was constantly undervaluing myself. That was problem number one, is I was constantly undervaluing myself. And part of that is because I spent a lot of time in a small military town where, frankly, for the kind of creative work and technical work that I specialized in, people didn't like to pay for it, because they didn't understand it, because the nature of their business was 10 years behind the curve of New York and California, maybe 20 years. So that creates this bottleneck in terms of the local side. The good news is, with the SEO, I was organically being surfaced to people outside of the local business community, which is something that a lot of people are reluctant to do. They get very comfortable with the idea of, oh, be local, be local, be local. And there's nothing wrong with being local, but you have to understand its limitations. And even for consumers, they don't want to be limited anymore to the local talent pool. And so,
Right.
or to who they know or who's in their network. And that's where the value of SEO and being able to show my work and tell my story comes in. And that's where my own blog and website, which I control, and then YouTube, built on that. And my experience of SEO in web hosting and web design and graphic design and all those things, and having my own website to manage, and not just doing it for clients and all those things, gave me an advantage in YouTube And so I started doing YouTube content on a weekly basis and committed to it in 2013. And that's the origin of my YouTube channel, which is where a lot of people know me from just because it's my biggest traffic source.
Yeah.
And so
In
people that
case
don't know
anybody
me,
would like to know, Roberto has 40,000 subscribers,
yeah.
millions of views, thousands of views on each of his
Yeah,
videos.
about 30 million channel views across the entire channel. I think there's about 100 videos that have 100,000 or more views. Only one of them has a million. I grew slowly and organically over the last 7 years. I didn't have a viral moment. I didn't have a viral moment. There's no single thing that blew me up. It was all incremental. And while
Mhm.
that's not as sexy of a story, it's valuable in the aspect of it means I literally haven't arrived yet, and I haven't had, and some people never have, a viral moment that puts them on the map. So many people are waiting for this one moment, this one thing to change. And so they're essentially waiting Andy to win the lottery. The way I approached it is the way that an index fund type investor or a dividend stock investor approaches
Mhm.
things, is where it's like small, steady, predictable, incremental growth over a long period of time that compounds in its effect.
Yeah.
And I consider my content the investment in compound interest, steady traffic, new organic discovery, old content working in the background for me day after day after day, like the Terminator. It never sleeps. And I have over 1,400 videos on YouTube. Everyone likes to look at subscribers and views as an accomplishment. I like to look at my body of work. I like to know that there's almost no one in the world, let alone in the YouTube platform, let alone in the world of marketing, that has shot, produced, edited, SEO optimized over 1,000 pieces of content on a single platform, on a single YouTube channel by themselves. So I'm very proud of that, Andy. I'm very proud that I was early to live streaming, especially on mobile. And I have done over 2,000, soon to approach 3,000 live streams that I've either hosted or been a participant in over the last 7 years. So I've done about 3,000 live streams, 1,400 YouTube videos, 1,000 plus Instagram posts, probably at this point 1,000 written articles, even though I have to revive my archives now, and because we switched to a new WordPress website, and I'm very happy about that. The amount
If
of
I had, if
content,
I had, I've got to buy some of those hand clappers.
yeah, the amount of
Serious.
content I've done is so absurd that,
You
yeah.
made a really, really good point. Not only were you consistent, is that you were delivering content. And I remember, I don't know, a couple of weeks ago, maybe, I don't know how recent it was, but you showed, whether it was on a video or on social media, that a video from how many years ago was still giving you significant, dinner out money,
Oh,
right?
significant. Like over $180 a month, and it was a video that was like I think 3 or 4 years old now, and
Yeah.
it still every single month gives me about $180 on that video, and it still brings in constant new viewers and new subscribers. And so the secret to my YouTube subscribers and my success is that I have a prolific and absurd evergreen funnel that will always work, because then I don't have to be relevant in the macro. I'm relevant in the micro. And that is actually, there's more longevity in that than people would think, because to be relevant in the macro, you have to be sensational, you have to be trendy, you have to take a lot of risk, you have to, in many cases, be extroverted or flamboyant, and that's not everybody's personality. I don't feel like it's mine, and I really want to speak up for people who are more introverted and more reserved or don't have high levels of energy. And I don't want them to think that, well, this is what you have to be successful because this is what people want. It's like in the macro, but all of those people with millions upon millions and millions of followers have never done a transaction with a significant amount of them, to be honest with you. So why not, if you go in the micro and find the people like you or the people you best serve, the changes that you can make or things that you can do in the world, and build that tribe? It doesn't have to be bigger to be better.
You were a turtle on roller skates, Roberto. I love that. And I know Vicky and Eric in the comment threads, you're hearing this, right? Because I'm right there with you holding hands. We're doing what we can day in, day out, just to create content that's relevant for our audience, that will be relevant 5 years from now.
Yes.
That's meaningful. So one of my videos was how to create, how to calculate the LTV CAC ratio.
I
Okay.
love that. I love that. LTV is something that not enough people talk about, especially in the world of content creation. The reason that I'm a good coach is I have content creators that come to me, Andy, that have millions of subscribers, but they know that their honest truth is they suck at business and they suck at negotiating brand deals, and they know that they're undervaluing themselves and they are fearful of their future because they know they're overly dependent on YouTube systems, on YouTube ad revenue, and they're superstitious enough to know that that could go away at any moment. And in that case, their superstition is well founded in the case of algorithms and the internet and AI, because you could end up on the wrong side of it arbitrarily,
Yeah.
and there's nothing you can really do once that happens. And
Right.
so they need something more reliable. They need a diversification of their platforms, of their revenue streams, of their brand. And they come to me because I take all of this YouTube and internet stuff and I make good business sense out of it, Andy, because I look at content, I look at intellectual property in the same way that somebody looks at product inventory. That those years as a teenager slaving away in retail, making almost no money, have served me well because I understand merchandising and units per transaction, and I understand margins, and I like,
Yeah.
it's like that actually matters. Those years of working in corporate America, toiling and slaving away to build somebody else's business and dream, and have them sell my work at 100 to 1,000 times the value, there was benefit in that. There was learning in that. There was an understanding of a bigger picture and the role that we play in the interconnectivity and
Yeah.
intersectionality of things. And
Yeah.
again, most people that are corporate employees never absorb those lessons. Most people who are retail employees, they never absorb those lessons. I have the mindset of always working within a business as if I own that business, because deep down, I was a natural born entrepreneur. I don't believe in predeterminism, but if I did, I would say that it was my destiny. And that sounds arrogant, but the fact is, there's nothing so
Yeah.
wonderful and blissful as knowing who and what you actually are and having the courage to accept that, um, and to move forward with it. Whereas most people don't know who they are and they're afraid to find out. And even if they do, they spend half their life hiding.
Right. Because it's scary and it's hard work to do that. So much respect for you, Roberto. Thank you for having the courage, and thank you for listening to your North Star and following it, wherever it moved around the world. Let's just say hi to a few folks. I agree, Vicky. Roberto's story is actually the best story. It's more relatable and shows it takes time and patience. Thank you for being such a great role model for all of us. And yeah, Vicky, I'm going to just throw this up again too. You should be very proud of that content creation as well.
It's a lot of editing. Oh yeah,
And
it's a
then
lot.
and then here's, Eric Cox, who helps people be media prepared. So he knows all about video, but he's from the angle of, will that CEO or that public figure be ready for the camera when they come, and, ask those meaningful
That was
questions.
one of the hardest parts. Like the technical stuff was the easy thing
Yeah.
by comparison.
Right.
Knowing, like, it's easy to figure out what camera you need. It's easy to figure out the settings. It's easy enough to watch a few editing tutorials. It's easy enough to learn every single, well, if you're me, you obsess and you learn every menu system in every Adobe program ever, because I'm a neurotic mess. But that stuff is all a matter of time and a matter of tweaking and everything. And I love machines. It's like, they're reliable and they're consistent. That's what I like about them.
Put
It's like,
questions out of the blue. No. Hey, sister, Mia. Mwah, 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 mwah. Always so good
but
to
yeah,
see
me
your
of us. But
gorgeousness.
yeah,
And
but yeah. Go ahead.
I just want to say hi, Dale Roberts. I agree.
Yeah.
Absolutely. We're where we are today because we listened to Roberto. Of course, y'all are much further along than I am, but I'm going to get
You'll
there.
get there. But yeah, the learning the tools, the techniques, the technology, by comparison, that's easy. The
Yeah.
hard part is the courage to put yourself out there in the first place, especially if, again, you identify as an introvert, because all you're doing is all your self-doubt and recriminations and analyzing everything that can go wrong, and you're playing out these doomsday scenarios in your head, constantly raking yourselves over the coals for no good reason. And then you go and you do the damn thing, and then it's like, oh, that wasn't so bad. Everything I imagined like went completely the opposite of that. I was like, oh, this isn't so bad. Nothing bad happened. Oh, I panicked I gave myself an anxiety
Well,
attack for no reason.
yeah. And and getting in front, and doing video. Listen, I stopped for a good year and a half. A lot of it was just that I was feeling, the age was catching up. There's a lot of youth on
Yeah.
video, and fortunately, the StreamYard does some nice glowing for this multi-decaded face. But I still realize that, and also I really lost my ability to be able to recite, and remember things. So I
I've never really had that ability. I'm 36 and I haven't it's not that like there's nothing I don't have the luxury of saying, "Oh, well, it's my age," or I've just never had that ability, Andy. I don't have the ability to memorize scripts.
Okay, but okay, fans of Roberto, remember I pinged you the other day on Twitter. I said, or maybe on YouTube, and I just said, Roberto, you sit there and you talk and you share, and it's really like really incredible point on. I could never do that without a script because I'd start talking and go, what was I saying? What was your trick? It was a great, it was a,
So, what I do is I don't write scripts, I write outlines and I bullet point outlines to keep me on track in my smartphone. And then I use sometimes my Apple Watch and I set a timer for myself so that, all right, I have to get through these talking points and I have to be accountable to a relatively X amount of a video, or I'm going to have to lose some in editing because sometimes I don't. Sometimes I just let the camera run and then I just don't bother with trimming down that much. But besides ums, and dead air,
right.
and there's only so much of that. So if you see a 28-minute video from me, I recorded for 29 minutes and 45 seconds. That's you literally got
Wow.
the whole video there,
So
and then I just
impressive. But yeah, so viewers, just so you know, the transition that I just, you don't want to keep your information from people. And yes, some of us are better at podcasting. Some of us are much better at the written word. For me, I love talking to the camera. So I had to stop setting up my own barriers and say, hey, bring it on. Let's continue the conversation. And
yeah.
it's so much fun. And I love
This is just a little quick like outline right here. You guys, the autofocus is not going to
take
snap
it.
into place for that. But yeah,
That's the outline that you're going to
it's
use.
just a quick outline. This is a quick outline for what's probably about a 16-minute video because I have 7 key talking points and I know I have to do an intro and an outro. So I know that, all right, I have these 7 talking points. I
Mhm.
need to make sure that I do them within 2 minutes or less and
Yeah.
get to the point. And so what I'll do is I'll read that talking point, contextualize it in my mind, run it over, and then think about the things I have to nail in that,
Right.
and then I'll riff for the rest because it's something that I already know that I believe in. So I took it out of my head, I put it down, I read it back to myself, and it's like, okay, yes, and that's the tip, that's the thing, that's the takeaway, that's the actionable piece.
Yeah.
So that's why my videos don't have fluff, Andy. That's why they're so because I just actionable, actionable, actionable,
Yes.
actionable. There's people who do a great job with very much integrating their self into their content, which I think is I don't do what's called personality driven content, but this is what would, or if I can find a way to do a little bit more of it, it's what will blow up my channel. Because if you're a professional, this is my advice for any of you. If you're a professional, what will work, at least in YouTube, it might be different in other video marketing platforms based on the culture. But if you're a professional, even if you're not trying to reach a super young audience, but you want to reach people that are between 24 and 44, and you want them to be loyal to you and not just the topic, you will have to integrate more of your personality and more of your life and lifestyle into your content. Now, I am an at-home entrepreneur, and I also don't I'm not in love with vlogging and I'm not in love with over editing content. And but I like watching some of those things but only to a point. And the thing is, I honestly skip over a lot of that if someone's an education creator that also because I like it and I see what they're going for, but once I've decided that I like somebody, I don't need the montage of them playing with their dog anymore to be invested emotionally. They're making that for the new people, not me. And so I skip past that part and I watch. I'm here for the actionable thing. Give me the actionable thing. But for the rest of you, whenever you have new people who don't know you, don't love you yet, don't know who you are, haven't built that trust, aren't loyal yet. These things make you relatable, as we like to say in the business. They make you relatable. They reveal the humanist part of you. They humanize you and humanize your brand. And those things are essential and they're important. I try to do that now more with anecdotes and storytelling and relating to lived experiences. And there's an entire genre of YouTube called story times, which is basically just people talking about their life experiences one way or another. And I borrow elements from that rather than try to create cinematic content or vlog, life casting, lifestyle content, because I feel that my lifestyle is that I'm an artist and a creative person at heart, but I'm also a techie. And so my home office and my environment, the space besides my bedroom that I spend the most in is this room because I have a separate bedroom from this office. And it's a fairly nice, fairly large office with a lot of different set pieces. I've got my couch over there for sit down videos. I've got the bookcase that
I
many of you
love
know
all
and
the
love.
colored lights.
Thank you. I've got my second standing desk over there for Twitch, and then I've got this standing desk. And so I have oh, and I also over there, by the divider that goes into the other room, I have my whiteboard. And so, I have this wonderful, great space here that is dedicated to my craft, that is dedicated to my creativity, that energizes me. But at the same time, I feel that I spend a lot of time working on the things that I love, but I think from the outside in, the process of that is not that entertaining. Like, it's not that entertaining. I mean, I can throw
Yeah,
some B roll and music in there.
Roberto.
It's not that entertaining to sit there and watch me edit a video. It's not that entertaining to sit there and watch me take client calls and write emails. It's not like my lifestyle. It's like, and yeah, I go out and I play with my dogs, and yes, I hang out with my friends. But it's like,
But do
I
you
don't.
want to, you don't want to be known for that. And see, this is what I love
Yeah.
about your content. So many, there's no, because a lot of people don't do video because they're looking at either the folks who haven't put enough quality into their video because
Hmm.
people said, just use the camera that you have to shoot video. No, you're taking up people's time. Put some thought into that video.
I
But
agree.
then you've
If
got,
but if that's all you have, I want people to start with what they have.
yes.
One of the most
Okay.
successful YouTubers of the last 3 years is an entrepreneur real estate investor named Stephan. And he started with an iPhone, and he's so frugal, it wasn't even the newest iPhone. Uh, and he's now at approaching 2 million subscribers on his main channel. I think he's up to maybe
Wow.
200,000, 300,000 on his second channel. And he's killing it. And because of the nature of his content, he's making about 160 to $200,000 a month in YouTube ad revenue alone. YouTube, he was already a real estate millionaire, but he'd never made $1 million in a year. YouTube allowed him to do that. But it was 3 years of uploading twice a week
Okay.
without ever missing an upload, and it was making better and better content. And he moved from his phone to eventually a very modest camera, a very good microphone. Eventually, he built a little office in his garage for the videos, and the rest, as they like to say, is
That's
history.
great. But the quality of his content, because at the end,
Oh, absolutely.
yeah, that's what I mean. Is you can't get on there and laugh and giggle and do a bunch of stuff like that. You kind of.
I mean, they'll work on TikTok.
Speaking of TikTok, do you play on TikTok?
I've made like 2 or 3 TikTok videos, but it was just quick, like 60-second life advice. I'm struggling to figure out because there is attention, there's a market there, there are things people are doing there, and like I have my quirky, goofy side of my personality, but I'm not really trying to. That's not really the thing that I'm trying to capitalize on or monetize. That's for me, and that's also it works its way a little bit into my content. It works its way into my interviews and live streams, but it's like I'm not trying to monetize. To be honest, it's interesting. I don't have a problem with people wanting to monetize their personality,
Mm-hmm.
but I kind of don't want to beyond the part of my personality that is an educator and a teacher.
Yeah.
And I started in the early parts of my YouTube career to some extent monetizing my creativity and my art. I do in the sense of how it applies to how I build my brand and business. Even the aesthetic and the understanding and the lights and the things that I do here is part of creativity.
Yeah.
But the packaging of my content, the graphics, all of that, the my photography skills, all of it. But it's not the thing that I'm selling like I used to when I was in creative services as a business. Because the thing that transitioned me more into the marketing side is the simple fact that there came a point where it's like I didn't love the experience of that side of client services as much anymore because the creative direction and what I felt was best was often overruled by the paying client, and you have to go that route. But that didn't feel good to compromise. And then I was showing a portfolio with work that where I made compromises. And later, actually, in the graphic design videos that I'd done later, it's funny. The learners and the students, they loved it. Some of my peers would literally find my old work and say, "Why are you teaching anybody?" But I'm like, "This is my old work, or this is what clients paid for. It's not what I thought was correct. And you guys all should know better." But what I found is, unlike me, I found that there were a lot of my peers that their portfolio didn't consist of the version the client approved. It was the version they felt was best, which I don't have a problem with that.
Mhm.
I have a problem with holding other people to that standard if they're trying to be authentic to what it was they were
For
commissioned
them.
to do and what they were paid for. And also, a lot of people, they go out of their way to bury their old work. Andy, I may feel there's a huge gap between my old work and where I am, but I'm proud of how far I've come. I'm
Wait,
not really embarrassed by it. And I think that it's inspiring to a beginner to see that somebody sucked as much as they do right now and what's possible for them. And so I'm not so pretentious and so precious that I feel the need to bury and distance myself from who I was and where I started in my humble beginnings. And I don't feel like it undermines me or my credibility. I
yeah,
feel that anybody has the right to teach someone if they are one step ahead of them, or if they have the actual patience to teach them and to listen and to not abuse them for their questions.
right.
And I don't think that everyone who calls themselves a professional is qualified to teach because regardless of the results they produce, they don't have the temperament for it.
Right. You brought up a good point though, folks. When you're doing video, and again, Vicky in the threads and Eric, you all relate to this, and Mia as well. You are, and Dale, you are the director, the producer, the editor, the script writer. You're really doing it all. It's a big undertaking. So I can understand why people have a hard time uploading once a week. And I am with Vicky 100%. I think I don't know where Vicky said it over here. Yes. I started going live to start eliminating all the editing. That's
I think that's a good strategy for a lot of people. I have someone on my team that I've been encouraging to make content, and I told her that I think that live and also working with me on my lives as a co-host on some of them for my coaching program, like that. I'm like, you're so good live, and people love you that like you're scrutinizing in your head all of the way you did it and stuff like that because you have the ability to look back on the replay without hitting release. But if it's live and in the wild, it's already been out there and it's already been exposed. So now editing after the fact is fine. So I've just convinced her that the strategy for her is repurposing live video. And
what's a good strategy now? Let's say somebody is building their YouTube channel and they're launching their YouTube channel. What do they need to know? Because this is 2020. And so you're up against a lot of folks who are
well,
doing
the
video.
first mistake is to think that you're up against people,
Okay.
and that is only true if what you're doing is generic in nature. What you are up against is everything in their life. You're not competing with another YouTuber. You're competing with their kid for 5 more minutes of attention. Like that's the truth.
Yep.
And so whatever you make better damn well be worth the 5 minutes that you're asking for someone's life that they will never, ever, ever get back. That's 5 minutes that can go to their kid, 5 minutes that can go to their spouse, 5 minutes that can go to their boyfriend, girlfriend, 5 minutes that can go to personal development, 5 more minutes of a good workout, 5 more minutes of being in the garden. Like versus the attention that you're asking for. And it is an ask. It's okay if the answer is no. And that's where I want emotionally people to get before they think about strategy. And then saturation, I have some very good news and some very bad news. There is no such thing as saturation in YouTube and in social media. It is the most BS statement that anyone makes. And I see marketers perpetuating the myth of saturation because here is what there's not. Andy, there is not some embarrassment of riches of quality content for every single niche in the world. There is not. There are areas and markets where there is an embarrassment of riches of quality content, and to where if you are a quote unquote nobody, there's a lot of great content to watch from someone who's not you, to where it's a guarantee that it's a good experience. That being said, if you are going to play in that game, you come hard or not at all, unless you're just doing it for fun as a hobby. But if you're serious and you're not going to make content at the highest level, if you're not going to, from day one, set out to make your experience of your content as enjoyable as someone with 100,000 subscribers, 1 million subscribers, if you know that you're playing in the most competitive space in the world, like let's say if you, for whatever reason, were doing video games, or you were doing beauty and makeup, or you're doing lifestyle, and it's more broad and not narrow of a genre within that, or a subgenre or subtopic within that, then come hard or not at all, or accept that your hobby level, and that's okay, and I have nothing against that. But if you're going to say you want this, your actions have to merit the fact that you prepared and you planned and you trained, because the person that you're competing with attention with has been at this for 5 years and proven themselves. You are a new athlete on the field. You are a rookie going up with someone who earned their letter jacket. What are you going to do about it? And understand that you're probably going to get dunked on. You're probably going to catch some fouls. You probably are going to lose the game here, but you need to give it an earnest try that shows that you respected what you're up against enough to give it a good go.
Love that. And that, again, is for those of us who are out there creating this content as solopreneurs, our businesses. What about someone who is a founder with a team, and video marketing strategy has to be part of the gameplay to attract their ideal clients, customers, to be in the game?
Have a standard. First of all, have a standard and say to yourself, what will represent me and represent this team and represent our brand will not look like what somebody is doing if they're hobby level. Okay. So first of all, set a standard. And one of the things I help clients that are business owners that want to go into video understand is that, look, video quality, there's 3 components here that matter: quality, quantity, and value. So value is actually more important than quality, believe it or not. Quality and quantity actually are equal in value. And I'll explain why, because people say quality over quantity. BS, another marketing myth, another fantasy. It's a lie that what I say often is this: quality over quantity is a lie that artists tell themselves to justify the pointless pursuit of perfection. That's a Roberto Blake quote.
For creativity, everybody.
Quote me on that. Yeah. And I'll explain why, because here's the thing. No matter how much quality of something you make or how much quantity of something you make, if it's of no value to me, it's irrelevant. It's gone. Right. It's like, you will not, think about it, you can make the best strawberry shortcake in the world. You know what? 0 value. I'm allergic. I'm out. So you failed. You made a thing that I can't consume. It doesn't matter how well you made it. So therefore, it's of 0 value to me. Doesn't matter how good it is. Doesn't matter how much of it you did. It's of 0 value to me, because it fails to meet my needs and what I can consume. So value is the first barrier to entry here. And it is the barrier to entry. And value is determined by our interest or for the impact or outcome that we're looking for. So when I make content that is about making money online, for example, or making a certain amount of money, or using a certain money-making tactic like affiliate marketing, for example, or online course sales or whatever, that's a specific impact that someone has. It's not just an interest or a fancy, it's an expectation they have of, I want to produce that result that Roberto produced. I want to make $8,000 a month in passive income. I want to make $100,000 a year. I want to get this many subscribers in YouTube because Roberto did it. I want to improve this aspect of my business in the way that Roberto did it. Or I want to start a business. That is an impact that you're looking to have. That is the entry point for you, is the impact and the result that you want to have. Now, if it's something you're curious about, let's say I do a video about a successful entrepreneur. You have an interest and an awareness of that person, or you're curious about them. So that's an entry point for you. So the barrier to entry is value. That's the barrier to entry. Now, the barrier to retention and the is the barrier to retention is going to be quality. Okay? So now I got you in at the entry point. Now, how am I going to keep you? That's where quality comes in. Quality has two components: production quality and performance quality. You know, of all the great lights and fancy this and that and everything like that, the production can be on point. The performance sucks, we're out. And so, what is performance? Performance is the emotional connection you can build with the audience. It's your communication style and the clarity in which you present your things. And it's also the confidence and charisma that you have in that delivery. And you need all of those three things proportionately. If any of them is lacking, then so is the performance, and we're out. So you have to be able to speak well and clearly and thoughtfully. You have to be able to speak confidently, and you have to do so in a way that's inviting and not alienating. And that's what's going to do it. So that's quality performance, ladies and gentlemen. And that's
Thank you. I mean, I've just got to, yes, yes, Mia, serious gems all over the place.
right.
And Andy, I agree. The more authentic the content is, I'm right there with you on that.
Well, it'll keep your attention. Winning your attention is about your interest in the results and the impact you want. You don't start a video because you don't know what the quality is until you click the button. So you have to be interested in the thing, or you have to be looking for the value. So we're value driven.
So whether you are the solopreneur who's creating these videos for your business, or you are the CEO and founder of a business and you've got a team working, everything that Roberto just said is so important for having a successful video marketing strategy.
And this works whether you're education, inspiration, or entertainment. And this is why it's practical. And the other thing about production, because I know a lot of people are worried about cameras and editing and lighting and music and audio and all of the different things, is that here's the secret to good production, Andy. Production quality is supposed to be in service of the story that you're telling. And its job and role is this: to eliminate distractions and to add or enhance the value and experience that the viewer has. What is quality content? The experience of the viewer. The experience of the viewer is what determines whether something is quality. And that experience is through the lens of how well it was produced and how well it was performed. And that's it. And so, and we got there to retention from the entry point of value. We value this. We care about this. We're interested in this. We're curious about this. Now you got our attention. You baited us. You hooked us. Now, did you deliver? All right, you delivered for us. Great. Okay, but is there anything more to this? And that's where quantity comes in, because quantity is the only thing that can allow you to scale. You got the entry point. You got the retention. You got the engagement. But if it's a one and done, or you're sporadic, like how is that going to scale? You can't be a one-hit wonder. You can't just, oh, I'm gonna knock it out of the park for you sometimes. You can't ghost people. You can't be, oh, you're great when you actually show up. You can't do that.
What's the minimum amount for?
Well, that's different for everybody, because a lot of it is about the expectations you said, Andy. It's about the promises you make, and then it's about delivering on it. It's also about, well, what does the market need and merit and support, and what will it support? Now, when you're talking to business owners, I don't think you need to do daily content. When you're talking to people who themselves are going to be working a 9-to-5 job or profession, you don't need daily content. It can work, but you don't need it, because reasonably, you already know that person has a limited amount of time and in the day, and they have a limited amount of disposable time in the day. So understanding the nature and culture of your ideal viewer avatar is important regardless of what content you're making, because that's why there's not a universal fast and hard rule to, oh, just make this much. There's not. It is circumstantial, and it's predicated on the culture of your audience. If you're making content for young people, I would say 3, 4, 5 days, 7 days, hell, 10 times a week, because Kids have no responsibility for the most part, if they're lucky, if they're blessed to be in a good situation where they don't have any responsibilities and everything. Not my experience, but whatever. If you're in that situation, then you have all this disposable time in the world, and that's why the top content creators, Andy, in
Mhm.
the world in YouTube specifically, cater to younger audiences up to 18 or early 20s, because the reality is that if life proceeds normally and accordingly, you won't have a lot of burdens and responsibilities through that situation, I hope. If things are going accordingly and as they should, then you will have an abundance of free time, and you can put that into YouTube
Yeah.
and TikTok, Snapchat, whatever the kids are doing. And so an adult, on the other hand, has a limited amount
Mhm.
of time that is disposable. And it's our responsibility to respect that, especially if they're our ideal customer or consumer. That's not to say that long form content doesn't serve a purpose or its place. If you're doing something technical in nature, that step by step process that you spend 45 minutes explaining saves someone 3 hours of doing it wrong and another 5 of backpedaling and redoing it again. So that 45 minutes is worth it. So understand that
Yes.
there's so if that's what it takes, if it's complicated and technical in nature, if it's something that took you 5, 8, 10 years to master, it's worth someone watching 45 minutes about it.
Yeah.
So frequency and consistency are what quantity is about, and that is necessary in the occasion in the because consistency is about honoring your promises and being reliable. And we all know that. Frequency is about making sure that you're doing enough to be top of mind, both for the audience, but also for the algorithm in terms of, all right, how many videos ago, not how many days or hours or weeks ago, how many videos ago since they last watched you is important algorithmically to say that you're more relevant to somebody
Right.
than something else. So that when YouTube and these systems have to decide, what are you predictably going to watch next if I offer it to you? Someone that you watched out of your last 100 videos that you watched 5 times and you spent a lot of time with is more likely than someone you watched 2 or 3 from. When I say that, that makes a lot of sense, right?
Yeah. And do you think that IG and Facebook stories are diluting the video content out there?
Not at all, because not at all because it's the experience that they're choosing to have there,
Yeah.
and it's the place that they're looking to be. We don't want to move from one platform to another necessarily, with the exceptions being Twitter or possibly even LinkedIn, because we're used to those being distribution funnels for other content, even Facebook. But Instagram is its own content platform, it is its own experience. And so I would say we need to create experiences that are unique to that. I think people are afraid to cannibalize their content. But the thing is, it's not supposed to be about growing on that platform. It's supposed to be about growing your brand. And it's supposed to be about using these things as a means to an end. People use social media platforms as a goal instead of as a tool, Andy. And
Yeah.
it's a tool that's in service of your mission and in service of your brand. And so regardless of, do you think I care about whether a customer came through YouTube or Instagram as long as they're paying me? I
Right.
don't. So I'm not going to romanticize that. And that's where I differ from many people who are either YouTube educators or marketers or just that, in the fact that I believe in my content holistically. It's my belief that someone benefits from watching all of my content, but I don't expect everyone themselves to believe that. And I don't expect them by themselves to be able to connect the dots. I'm trying to readjust the narrative around my content to make that more viable so
Yeah.
that I can create more of those binge watching sessions. But I've created so much content that someone can pick their entry point to me and
Yeah.
go 100 videos deep in that rabbit hole if they wanted to. But the thing is, they might be siloed into that playlist or that content from me and never watch anything else. That's algorithmically disadvantaged for me on new content.
Hmm.
But in terms of searchability, which YouTube is the biggest search engine in the world, and I think businesses need to prioritize the search engine of YouTube,
Yep.
business owners need to stop chasing what YouTube influencers and entertainers are doing, unless they're trying to build a lifestyle personal brand or make it about themselves and their story, which is fine, by the way. If you have a great prolific story of overcoming or building something amazing, or you live a really good, interesting, unique lifestyle that you want to share with other people like you should absolutely do that and then incorporate education into that, balanced against entertainment. I also think someone like me can manage to be a little bit funny and show my authentic, nerdy, goofy self without diluting my content
Right.
And so I think I can very much do an 80-20 on education and entertainment in order for it not to be stale and boring. But it's not going to be hyper energetic, and it's not going to be very valuable
Right.
to, from an interest standpoint, to 18 to 24-year-olds. But there's a point in the timeline, if they're ambitious enough, where that is true. And I have a few young hustlers in my audience and in my community. But the reality is that I have more people over the age of 45 than I do under the age of 25.
Yeah, because we're here to learn. We're here to get specific. I mean, viewers, this is an educator that we have with us tonight, Roberto, on this episode. I got to tell you, I don't know about you, but I kept wanting to look around the corner. I can't see that whiteboard. What's that saying over there? Every time Roberto turned over there to look at the whiteboard.
Well, it has authority versus attention, originality versus authenticity, and then it has what I said about quality, quantity, value. Because I was lecturing somebody on that over the phone earlier, and I have this in some of my slides and presentations, but I was saying it out loud, and sometimes when I'm on a phone call, I actually like to go to my whiteboard and like scribble this out as I talk to them, and I go into Professor Roberto mode. So
No, but no, it's key because we're here. We're here to learn and up our game. Founders do better and their businesses do better when the founder does better. So we
agreed.
have to educate ourselves. I don't care if you're out gardening and you're listening to this or doing the dishes, whatever. Take time out to listen to folks like Roberto Blake, who will make sure you understand why you are doing video content. And this whole strategy, at the end of the day, this level of content strategy is going to increase your brand awareness because folks are going to have more faith and trust in you because you are reliable. You keep showing up. They're like, oh, there's so
And
and
it's a
so.
good experience. And you specifically know that you're catering to their interest and to the impact they want in their life.
Yep. And I think those watching the archives, right, or on the other channels, can we all just say, yes, we're all, thank you so much for that laugh out loud moment, Mia. And yes, Eric, clear, concise, compelling.
Yeah.
The 3 C's, period, end of story. So, there's this whole monetization. Okay.
Yes. I can talk about that at length.
I know. What's a streamlined version that you can help us with as far as, let's say we want to get to a point where we can monetize because, again, multiple streams of revenue are a good thing. We're seeing that, especially right now when we're all quarantined. Wow, I've got some other ways I could be making money.
So one of the things I do that most content creators and even YouTube educators don't do is on my website, robertoblake.com, in my blogs, I release a monthly YouTube income report. Now, what's not in that report is my coaching business and product sales. I keep that separate because I know that most of the people reading this are YouTube content creators. And like, God forbid I overwhelm them with the concept of starting an actual business. That being said, I make well over $100,000 as a content creator influencer. Now, that being said, on average, $36,000 to $40,000 a year of that is ad revenue. The way I look at it, and that in my mind, for me, the way that works is that just goes to the IRS. But the way that I look at it is, oh wait, I'm being paid to market myself and my brand and my business because if I wasn't getting organic traffic, I'd have to buy ads. But instead, other people are buying ads and paying me as I market myself. That's fun. So instead of having to, I have to set aside this marketing budget to get all my traffic like we did in corporate America, I am instead being paid to market myself. And that's how I view YouTube monetization is, oh great, I'm being paid to market myself. I'm being paid to promote my brand and business. I get to promote my brand and business and get new customers and get new clients and get email leads and grow my list. And on top of that, they're cutting me a check for it. Like, this is great. They're like, what are people complaining about? And this is a free website? I'm like, if this was 20 years ago, I'd scream that this has to be a scam, but
But still in 2020, you can make money. If we were to, like Vicky and I, Mia and Eric, we were starting, getting our subscribers, because isn't there a cutoff point, like
1,000
1,000?
subscribers, 4,000 hours of watch time, 4,000
Okay.
hours of watch time, 1,000 subscribers. Easier to do for live streaming than video on demand. But if you set the expectation of being a streamer, then that's what it is. Interestingly, though, I believe that today, if someone were to do, especially in the business world, if somebody does live streams and basically does a podcast and they do it pretty regularly and they do the live streams and the live interaction, that they can get to the 4,000 hours of watch time by leaving those streams up, because there's replay value and it's long form and people listen to it like a podcast and replay and so on and so forth. Especially if it's in a business niche where there's not a lot of expertise. The good news about, and the reason business and founders have an advantage over regular YouTube content creators is regular YouTube content creators, most of them, especially being young, the majority of it is young people. They go into things that have no barrier to entry and require no experience and no resources and no technology and no technical expertise because they are young. They don't have a decade of anything they can talk about with confidence and certainty. Their confidence and certainty comes from what I refer to as the arrogance of misspent youth. And so the the naivete of when you can confidently believe you know everything. At least that was what my youth was like. So there so yeah, because
But
I can't say I was confident. but the but I was confident in how smart I was. I wasn't confident in any other aspect except for my intelligence and my creativity. That's the only things I was confident about. But the maybe you
but
can relate
for
to that.
making but for making money, so
Yeah.
the ability to consistently get to that
Well,
1,000
make
subscribers.
money. Well, the thing is, once you do that, you also have to get enough ad revenue to meet $100 of ad revenue for YouTube to pay you out. They're not going to pay you 10, 20, or send you a check for $30. They're going to wait to 100. Now, the different ad rates in business, our ad rates are very, very high. But the thing is, you don't want to rely on that. And from a monetization standpoint, what you really want to think about is, how is this going to grow my business? And so the first thing I would do is, before you worry about YouTube monetization, is I'd be using this to grow my email list. And then I'd be thinking about the product that you sell. I'd be thinking about the funnel. I'd be thinking about the LTV. And I'd be thinking about making sure you're attracting an audience that is a buying audience, and do nothing that attracts skeptics. Do nothing that attracts skeptics. Skeptics don't buy, and I have no interest in them. I have nothing wrong with critical thinking. I believe approaching things in life with the healthy and appropriate amount of skepticism. But in the world of business and in the world of money, it has no place, because you will never find a rich skeptic. You'll never find one. And why? It's because the thing is, there's nothing wrong with being fiscally conservative. I am. But you have to understand, there's a point where you're doing that and having a zero risk tolerance.
Yeah.
And you don't need, and you cannot benefit from people who have no risk tolerance, because you will spend more time defending and justifying and explaining things and trying to convince them than selling people that are ready to execute and to be helped.
Yeah.
So you start, in my opinion, with growing your list from the content by having another supplemental offering for people based on what their interest in, the impact that they want in their lives to be, and aligning to that, and then starting that. Because again, that is no risk. That is, oh, you just give me your email, you just give me access to you, and of course you know that I'm going to at some point make you an offer. Here's the good news: you don't have to buy anything. Being pitched is, there's nothing wrong with being pitched. You know why? Because guess what? You can say no. There's like, you know what? It's super flattering to be approached and to be liked or to be asked out and everything like that. Here's the good news: you can also say no. You can be flattered and also say no. And so that's a good lesson. And the thing is, you just don't have to be rude about it. But like, it's okay if people say no. That doesn't mean it shouldn't be offered to people who might say yes. And so that is a lesson that a lot of people don't learn, because of the people who scream, I don't want to be sold to. It's like, then stop watching free things and stop
So
consuming free things.
let me ask you this: as far as you have done a tremendous job with organic SEO, but to get up to the 1,000 subscribers, would you suggest just doing a better job at SEO?
I would
Or
say that you can do a combination of that. For one thing, don't romanticize YouTube. If you have other platforms that you have an audience in, bring them over and give them unique and special value, and don't feel you have to repurpose everything everywhere. It's like, it's fine to create exclusive experiences, by the way. And live is an exclusive and real-time experience depending on what platform you like the viewing experience of the most. So there's that option. The other thing is organic SEO still works, and it's because most of YouTube is really just entertainment. It is 90% entertainment. And again, only a small fraction of it is quality in terms of performance, production, and they're reaching people specific value, and the threshold of acceptable quality is lower for young people. So there is that aspect of it.
So do
So
you
what?
choose, do you use education, how to, style,
Yep.
entertainment? What do you use when?
I started with how to, and I started with tutorial stuff. And you have to also remember that literally anyone who made how to use Zoom, how to use Microsoft Teams, how to use Skype, how to use StreamYard, made out like a bandit the last 3 months. So
Yeah.
just understand that even if something doesn't pop right away, its time will come.
For
It's
those
just
of us who are, putting our video on YouTube, you get asked these questions as you go, what is this? Is this educational? Is
so
this entertainment? Is this,
look, I tell
you
people
don't have
to
business on there.
Yeah, I tell people to look at your life and your lived experiences, look at what you're good at, look at what you're passionate about, look at where you derive confidence from, and look at where a need exists in the world. Think about the people that are like you, but maybe at a different point in their timeline, a younger version of yourself. What would you do if you were Biff Tannen and you could go back in time and hand yourself the sports almanac with all the answers, right? Okay, well, you can't do that, but you can help the next one. So you might as well. And you can be rewarded. So there's value in doing that. And that's why it's funny. Skeptical people say, why teach someone everything you know? Doesn't that common sense dictate that that undermines your business model? And my answer is, well, no. Because first of all, you don't always have to teach directly to the thing that you're doing now. You can teach something that you've already done and exit out of and move beyond. And so that's fine. Another thing is, well, teaching you everything you know is not teaching you everything I know. And even if I did, well, I still have the benefit of my decade or more of lived experience, the decade or more of relationships that I've built, the decade or more of resources I've acquired and success, the decade of first on lived hands on experience with dealing with a crisis. Teaching you and giving you the knowledge is not making you my competition. It's absurd and arrogant to think that that would be true, that all you need is that by magically having all of my execution and all of my secrets, that you could somehow magically close the gap of years upon years and years of relationship building, networking, building systems, running and managing a team, and lived experience. That's really arrogant and foolish, and common sense would dictate that no amount of knowledge is comparable to lived experience. Experience is the best teacher. The world is the best teacher, and
Yeah.
so if you're good, you'll be a second or third to that. So there's no reason to hold back, so to speak, and don't feel that way, and don't let anyone ever make you feel insecure about that. What I would say is to be competitive in YouTube, create unique value from the perspective of what would best serve someone like you, because I doubt the market has that already, because everyone is being formulaic. You can have frameworks and structure, but the thing is, you have to think about, what's made me successful is that I reduce everything to common sense, because common sense isn't common practice. You would think that there would be a saturated market full of common sense. There's not, because common sense isn't sexy. It isn't sensational. It doesn't have this amazing wow, gee, golly to it. It's really straightforward as hell.
There you go. I listen, how can we support you? Because this is, founders love to add wind to other founders' sails. You are an extraordinary educator, creative founder. What can we do to lift you up a little?
So I always tell people, look, I never want to sell anything that to people that they can't afford, and that's the value of a lot of what I do for free. And it's a good place to start. And if you get any value from that, we can move on. So level one is you can support me by watching my free content on YouTube, youtube.com/Roberto Blake 2. You can engage and support me in Instagram and Twitter at Roberto Blake, or connect with me on LinkedIn. And if you want to watch my content, share it with your friends, promote it, or if you find something valuable in my content, if you want to put it in your email list as a link, then all of those things do support me because they give me the traffic that later turns into transactions. If you want to work with me, there's level 2. Level 2 of working with me is that if you know you want to make content for YouTube and you know you're bad at thumbnails, you can buy my $99 YouTube starter kit at awesomecreatoracademy.com. Or if you want some structure, some support to know the systems that I've used to help build successful personal brands and help people, and you also want to get a little bit more hands-on with strategy, I have a $59 a month membership program at awesomecreatoracademy.com. You can join me and the other people, not only on Team Roberto, but the people within our group, and you can actually talk with people in our private Facebook group. We have a live webinar every Tuesday at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard, and we have a live Q&A every Thursday at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard, and we also do a once a month group coaching call with everybody. And then there's level 3. Level 3 is you can just say, I want one-on-one time with Roberto. And you can just book that through my coaching one-on-one for either a 90-minute call or a 30-minute YouTube channel review. And all of that is over at awesomecreatoracademy.com. And so those are 3 ways you can support me. You can support me for $0 by watching, sharing my content, inviting me on your live stream or your podcast or your program, and allowing me to share my experience there, and so we can create more free value for people. Or you can decide to work with me at level 2 and take advantage of one of those offerings. They're very affordable. Or you can skip all the way to level 3 and work with me one-on-one. So that's how you can support me.
Love it. All the links will be in the show notes, folks. And seriously, subscribe. If you're not subscribing to Roberto Blake, do it immediately. Get on his email list, because I love your emails. I love your newsletters. Seriously, they're thoughtful, they're compelling, they're real. You come from the heart as well as the business aspect of what you're doing. Yes, Vicki, I agree. Nuggets. Yes, Andy Jack. Roberto, this is my co-host of the monthly pitch event here in Boston.
Oh, nice.
Andy Jack. So we just have the best time serving founders. Seriously, some great nuggets for you to have the best video content strategy. I'm always telling folks the Seth Godin quote, sure, it's been done before, but not by you and not for us. And if you get overwhelmed about competition, walk down the bread aisle in the grocery store and you'll realize there's a place for you.
Yeah, absolutely. What I tell people is that the sprint is saturated, the marathon isn't. So
you are evidence of that, Roberto.
Yeah.
Absolutely amazing.
There's no competition for the extra mile,
That's right. And we can see from Roberto's experience that, yes, he's built this up over 7-8 years, but it's paying off now. He's a young man. It's fine.
Yeah, 36 this year, 36 in June.
Yay. So viewers, I am so grateful you carved out time and joined us tonight. I know that your time is precious, but I also know that even though we didn't really see the whiteboard the whole time, we went to school and we learned, and there were things that you can implement and take action on immediately to bring out the best by you for the people who want what you have to say and what you have to deliver. If you have any questions for Roberto or me and would like to continue the conversation, please leave a comment or shoot me an email and we will follow up with you. And for those of you who are watching on YouTube right now, please click the subscribe button and click the bell icon. Or if you're watching, an archive, please do that. This way you'll be alerted every time I post a new video. Thank you. And I invite all of you to please subscribe to my newsletter. Let's stick together. It is the best of Andy-licious advice because it takes a village to raise a business, and we all need to hold hands and get through this together. Do you need a pitch deck review? Hey, I've raised millions from VCs and thousands from angels, and I co-host a popular pitch event in Boston. I know how to make sure your deck is ready for investors and your next pitch event. And look, this is no time to be going it alone as a founder. really, especially during quarantine and COVID-19, but anytime as a founder. You will get there faster if you have a mentor. It is proven every time. With me, I'm the urgent care clinic mentor. You can call me with any emergency you have. I will quickly diagnose their situation and return you and your business back to a healthy condition. All the links are in the show notes. Next Tuesday, everybody, May 19th at 7 p.m., we're chatting with the digital futurist, popular social media strategist, and powerful public and now virtual speaker, the one and only Brian Fanzo. And he's going to help you take your social media to a whole new level because you got to go where your customers are hanging out. So you got to make sure you're getting there smart. Join my meetup group to find out all the details for that. Roberto, I can't thank you enough for joining me. Seriously, I have just been the biggest fan for so long, and it meant the world to me. I got to see Roberto in person at Inbound 19, which is the
Yeah.
HubSpot's big event here in Boston, and
Yeah, I really enjoyed it.
and it was just like, oh, it was pure deliciousness. And he is who he is, and what you see right here, showing up on the screen, he is the real deal. So follow him, and he's so generous. You saw how much he gave tonight to all of us in this information. He will absolutely be there to answer any questions and guide you because video is where it's at. I know it's 2020, it's May 2020. We really don't know what happened the first 4 or 5 months of this year. But video content will always be important because folks need to find a way to connect with you. Any last thoughts, Roberto?
Right now is a very important time in people's lives, and people are in a place of transition. If you're a founder, if you're an entrepreneur, if you're an educator, then you have a unique opportunity to help people because the majority of you here have lived as working adults through the last Great Recession. You already have been here. It's a little different this time, sure, but you've faced a crisis in your lifetime before and you've survived it. Ideally, you've thrived as a result of those experiences. You have knowledge that is a unique lived experience that frankly a 20-something-year-old doesn't have. So your age is not a liability if there's any of you who are thinking that. I know that there's a struggle internally for a lot of people, and age isn't a liability, it's an asset in these times because you've survived. And there's nothing more valuable than that. Nothing. And so for all of the bravado and arrogance of misspent youth, the reality is you've had the sobering and humbling experiences of being able to get back up again after being knocked down. You've tasted victory and defeat, and you understand how the world actually works. If you are a founder, if you're a solo entrepreneur, or if you're on your way to becoming one, you have a better grasp of economic reality than anybody who's not been in that position before. You have something to offer. You have value to create. You just need to figure out how to produce and present it at the acceptable threshold of quality that you see represented in your niche. And until you can, you just do your best, and you have to start somewhere. Everyone starts at zero. You have to be consistent in it. I'm not telling you have to do 3 or 5 or da 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 da. You do what you can be reliable to. You make the promises that you can deliver on. Nothing more. I would prefer it not be once a month, but we'll take it if that's what it is. And finally, you have to understand what the value that you create is and what it represents to people. And I'm telling you that your lived experience is what is valuable right now. It is what's desperately needed. Whether it's your old war stories of how you had to find a new job in the worst economy, either as a someone who just left college and all of the promises that were made to you were lies, or you're somebody who found themselves out of work in the Great Recession and had to rebuild a career from nothing because you burnt all your bridges on the way out in a glorious bonfire, and you did that, or you had to enter the workforce having been all this time a stay-at-home parent because there was no other option for your family in terms of you making that sacrifice and those contributions. You have those stories to tell, and you should, because they are going to be someone else's lived experience tomorrow, and you've already been through it. You have value for them. There are those of you who, there are those of you who are providing value in other ways. There are those of you who can prepare people to enter the job market. There are those of you who are looking to hire people. There are those of you who can give opportunities. Making your content, making yourself known, making yourself available, accessible, being approachable, all of those things are important right now. And as Eric Cox says, I don't know who needed to hear this. Oh, wait, I need to hear this. Yeah, it's like, I mean, you should not hesitate or hold back, and you should not let yourself become discouraged by all the attention that other people are getting, because there's a difference between attention and authority. And there's a reason I put it on my board earlier. I was explaining to someone that, you know, there's a lot of people competing for attention, and the reality is you don't get to control attention a lot of times. You don't get control how people feel if you're chasing attention. You know, if you chase attention, you might court controversy. There's all these little psychological traps, but authority is something you can build brick by brick through lived experience, through work ethic, through discipline, through authenticity. Authority is something you can build brick by brick. It's not nearly as sexy as all the attention. It's not as sexy as going viral on TikTok or having a YouTube video blow up. But the thing is, when you build authority brick by brick by brick, even if what you built it on goes tumbling down, has a hurricane, has a flood, the thing is, the knowledge that you were able to build something brick by brick, and the fact that you did it, is something that no one can take away from you, and you know how to build it bigger and better, and you know how to learn from your mistakes because you built it brick by brick. It's not something that happened to you. It's something that happened for you because you did the work. And so I would rather you build authority than chase attention, because the thing is, attention is fickle. Authority is not.
Beautiful. Oh my gosh. Stunning ending. Stunning. Thank you for those beautiful, seriously, Roberto. That's very, very powerful final thoughts. I just want to do a shout out to my brand new intern from the HULT International School of Business. Natalia, you were tremendous tonight. Thank you so, so very much. You nailed it, goddess. Love that. Everybody who tuned in, I am again so grateful for your time. Remember to stay focused. Remember to take good care of yourself right now. Stay home, stay healthy, and always remember that you've got this. Founders can do hard things. You can do that. Thanks again, Roberto. Loved every minute with you. So grateful. Bye, everyone. Mwah, mwah, mwah.